Welcome to Concerning the Spiritual and Art, a podcast exploring spirituality, consciousness, and the creative process. I'm your host, Martin Benson. All right, Alex Coma, how are you doing today? Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Beautiful day today. I'm in Vancouver Island right now, so it's
Wow. I've
kind
always
of
wanted to
beautiful.
get up to British Columbia, that part of the world. It's gorgeous, huh?
Yeah, well, the summer is the best time to be here because in the winter it's just rainy and
Yeah.
damp. Like it's not cold because it's always between 5 and 15 degrees, but just always rainy. So
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm super excited to connect with you. We've kind of been connected through the internet a little bit through Nika Fontaine, who was another guest on my podcast who you've worked with. And it just looking at your work and getting a sense of not only like the art that you make, but sort of your mission as an artist to like spread consciousness, to give people space in order to kind of find their voice as artists through retreats and the Rose Umbra project that you do, which we'll get into later, is amazing. And you also are a podcaster like me. I feel like we're like kindred spirits, like kind of on a similar mission to spread the knowledge of this kind of work, but also all the things that come with it in terms of like opening up our hearts and our minds to something bigger and grander than this kind of sometimes bleak material existence that we've created on Earth.
mhm.
So it's super special. And, entering a conversation like this, there's so many ways you can do it, but I'm always interested in people's origin stories in terms of like how they began this sort of initiatory process of awakening, of getting more connected with the deeper parts of themselves and where that started to begin for you and sort of like how that journey grew from that point. So I'm just curious, like, yeah, like how did was it when you were a young kid or was it later in life? Like kind of a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, well, I have because I've been on this path, like deepening my understanding of it for so long. I have like an exoteric and an esoteric answer to that question. Like on an esoteric level, now that I do astrology, I can see really in Vedic astrology, you have the north and south node, which are called Rahu and Ketu, and the D9 chart is like your Dharma chart, your life purpose chart. And when two bodies of energies overlap on those two charts, it creates a very kind of tight manifestation of it. So what I'm saying with that is that it's almost like since my birth, which is like Ketu, which connects you to your past lives, I've been led like magnetically to the other pole, which is Rahu, to in a very, very specific place. And when these two nodes are the same in your D1, D9 chart, it means that anything that interferes in your life purpose will get fizzled out like almost energetically.
Mm.
So for me, like on the exoteric level, growing up as a child, I was always, coming from a Christian family. I was never connected to that religion. It was always a burden for me to go with my parents to church and stuff. But it opened up the space when I had access to not go anymore to like what I know there's something, but if it's not Christianity, what is it? And
Mm.
it was not like a conscious quest. It was more like my unconscious mind always pushing me to explore my mind, like reading books on psychology at first, learning about quantum physics, when I was 17 years old, and always pushing the mysteries the further I could. But it was always at first through the realms of science. And then when I bought my first book, which was The Secret Teachings of All Ages from Manly P. Hall,
Mm.
I read this book. It took me 2 years. I was just, reading one because it's like an encyclopedia of all the kind of mysteries. So I would read one mystery and then, for 1 month, just digest it, read another one
Mm.
for 2 years. And when I opened this door, for me, it was like revelations. Like I felt like there it is. That's the knowledge I was looking for. Then I bought like my tarot deck, met my spiritual guide very, very magical way. Like I was having
Yeah, can
now
you tell us
this,
about that?
yeah, I was having like my uh, so much influx of information and data to process.
Mm.
I'm a Gemini rising. I love synthesizing information. So I had so many questions on how things are connected. And then naturally, like you're in the city, I had no community. I knew no one in that realm. And especially not my parents, can't talk about that with my parents. So then I had a friend. So basically the act of seeking magnetically pulls something to you.
Hmm.
I had a friend who invited me. It's very random. So my friend invited me to her parents' like Christmas party, like the family party. I went there. She had invited another friend. Her boyfriend we just talked for like 2 minutes, and he's like, "Oh, you're into spirituality. Oh, this, that, that. You should meet my spiritual teacher. Like everything you're telling me is things that he's telling me."
Mm.
So I'm like, "Oh, interesting. Okay, cool." Ends like that. Then 6 months later, I think it was on a Wednesday, I have a flash. I'm like, I have to contact this guy. He was going the same day to see him. I meet him in front at the address he gives me. We walk up and then open the door. It's like a dark space. And there's just Amir. He's just like sitting with candles in the dark, like on his meditation mat. It's a big like hall, like meditation
Mm.
hall. And then I'm like, oh, so that's what I'm getting myself into. We just drop our feet, we drop our shoes, and we walk up to in front of him, take the mat, sit down, and he's like, "Oh, Gaston, I didn't know we were expecting someone." And then I sit down with them, and then we just had a conversation. And he was kind of my guide for 5 6 years, teaching me everything about tantra, the esoteric side of yoga,
Hmm.
but also mysticism, from the Golden Dawn traditions. But he's out of this, and now he's kind of made his own views on all of it. So he's been prescribing me Israel regarding books and like all those more compact but understandable and digestible books about the mysteries. And
Hmm.
that was a big part of my development, to have someone, a mirror to which I can synthesize the information on a more concrete level in a way, and
Yeah.
have practical tools to open up the mysteries within myself and not just intellectualize them. That was the main thing.
Exactly right. Like the intellect is an incredible tool for us, but the embodying of these practices and knowledge is a totally different experience that we have to put time into to cultivate, and suddenly sometimes you put in a lot of time and then it's just one flash. Sometimes it's like a gradual burn. Everyone's a little different, but like the embodiment of the knowledge is really the key. I found myself like early on in my explorations getting really caught up in the intellectual side. I have like a very sort of like intellectual framework in the way that I see the world. And so I feel like my spiritual journey has been about like putting the intellect aside and getting into the embodiment and the experiential. And then when you balance the two, it's pretty wonderful, especially as a way to like live through in this body and mind in this life. Was
Yeah.
this all in Montreal? Is that where you're from,
Yeah.
Montreal?
Yeah. That's in Montreal.
Wow.
But it feels like you know, you put new information, and for a lot of souls that are interested in this knowledge, it's not random. It just means like if you're already interested in those occult mysteries, it means you probably know it, and your soul knows these things, and you're just wanting to remember it. Otherwise, you would probably be interested in something just like the quantum physics side of it, and then
Hmm.
want to learn about it. And so, but I feel like just putting this information helps you remember it intellectually, and programs your mind to be looking for how these seeds can grow, like what light and what water does it need. And
Yeah.
so naturally, like even though it's intellectual, I think it's important that you start somewhere, and it'll grow eventually.
Exactly. Yeah. Just getting through the doorway and beginning that process of like becoming curious again and like letting go of this feeling of that what's going on or knowing anything at all. and trying to
Yeah.
be like a blank slate and open up, your mind to new things. And I would agree with you that I feel like a lot of this knowledge and these traditions like that are encoded with all this knowledge lives inside of us, and we're just like you said, like we're trying to coax it out of ourselves in some way and trying to get that memory back from what we've forgotten.
Mhm.
For me, that's what like any like insight, I don't know what it feels like for you, but whenever you have like whenever I have like a big insight, like a big aha moment, it doesn't feel like something new. It feels like, oh, I knew that. It's like I've
Mhm.
known that, and now I'm recognizing that I've known that, instead of like, oh, this is something new. It's really like a revelation of something much deeper and more primordial within myself.
Yeah.
And it's, happens all the time now. And I feel so grateful that like I can be open to that kind of inspiration. I'm
Yeah.
curious the kind of practices that you learned from your teacher. Like you mentioned sort of tantra, like, more like Vedic tantra. There's a lot of, when we say tantra, it's people can get very confused really fast because there's different
Yeah.
schools of tantra. There's also like a superficial level of tantra that like pop culture, tries to
Mhm.
inform people about. That really is not what it's about. So I'm curious, like for you, like what kind of practices were you learning from this teacher? Amir, is that his name?
Yeah, Amir
Yeah. What kind of
Mourad.
practices were you learning from him early on in this relationship that y'all developed?
Well, I would say the first year and a half, it was really like just meditation. We would practice different, I would say tantra, but it was like tantra is like for me, it's just a science that involves your concentration, but also like visualizations. It's not just pure emptying the mind and
Mm-hmm.
anapanasati. It's like
Yep.
you will actually be visualizing shapes of colors within different chakras, circulating the light
Yep.
within yourself, basically sharpening your, in the tarot would be your sword, like your
Mm-hmm.
ability to be concentrating on one object for a long time.
Yep.
That's what the first part of my training was basically. So we would do that in different techniques, yogic techniques. Um, yeah, and even like he showed me different. There's a thing called dream yoga that I had not
Mm-hmm.
heard before,
Yeah.
where it's the same thing. Like before sleep, you will just put your concentration, your attention on a specific place in the body,
Yeah.
especially like in the chakras, and depending where you focus and your intention with it, and you visualize these, what are they called again? These giant blue beings in the four corners of your room. So this adds a layer of spiritual protection so that
Mm-hmm.
your mind can actually access them, and you can basically cut off your fear mind that will be protecting you from going to those places, because what if there's a threat in the room that's
You're
going to
right.
attack you, a tiger?
Yep.
So you have these beings that are there, and then you would just focus. If it's in the heart, you might just transcend another dimension. But if you go in the lower chakras, you might have nightmares and actually, tap into your deepest fears that are
Mm-hmm.
unconscious. And then higher chakras, you're kind of connecting directly with entities if you go within the throat chakras and stuff.
Yeah.
So I have practiced this for a little bit, and then after a year and a half, he opened up the more magical type practices where you're programming your mind on a very subtle level.
Mm-hmm.
And magic is an ancient science, but it's for me also the science of the future. And basically, the missing ingredient in everything right now is consciousness, and that's what science is catching up to, is like how your awareness actually changes the experiment. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, magic is the science of consciousness. Like,
Exactly.
and that's the science of the future. And I mean, like, quantum physics is starting to understand that. I mean, it has been understanding that there's something a lot bigger than what we're aware of that's existing within the outer world, but it's also within our inner worlds. And I think magic just wraps everything up and you get it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it synthesizes the outer and the inner together. You understand how your mind works, the different levels, and also how you can, you know, banish some forces from your mind, or like invoke forces in your mind so that you will work to become a better human in the end. That's what I think. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you want to kind of remove the layers of your personality that are obstructing the truth of who you are. And so you do that systematically. Like it's a system that's very organized,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a slow process. I took my time with it. Like
Yeah.
I have been very slow with it because
Mm-hmm.
I want to understand what I'm doing as I'm doing it.
Definitely.
So I've learned many of those techniques to this day. They've been, it's just kind of for me, it's like the science of the mind.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
mind. The mind is like the moon in astrology. It's like your main tool as a human, but we
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it is. What is mental? What is mental energy? What are these images when I close my eyes? Like we don't get it.
Yeah.
So for me, it was understanding the most important tool that I have, which is
Yeah.
my mind.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, that really mirrors kind of like my journey in a certain way in term like I've kind of in my life have moved toward the Tibetan Tantra like
Oh
tradition,
yeah.
so very similar, but there are,
Hmm.
cultural differences in terms of but the practices are all, I think, in terms of the organization, like you spoke about, like a very systematic organization of practices. And like, yes, first you have to develop concentration. Because if you can't concentrate, then you can't do all of these other visualizations and you're not able to sit for long periods of time and being able to open up your mind to be able to experience the energy that moves through your body on the most subtle levels. Like if you're
Hmm.
very loud and distracted, you're not going to be able to sense the subtle nature of the energy that moves through you and through
Hmm.
the nadis, the chakras, all of that. So it makes, for me, it's very aligned with like my journey and like how I began getting into these practices was first meditation and like deep, more like first you have shamatha vipassana, in the Buddhist tradition, which is really the training of the concentration and then the insight in terms of feeling energy and movement. And then it gets more esoteric as you get into um, Ana yoga and all these other aspects of spiritual practice. And so people listening are like, where is this going? This is really interesting stuff, y'all. Like, but it's also like not something you want to take lightly. It's not like you could just read a book and understand it. Like having a teacher or having somebody
Yeah.
who's been on that road, they don't need to be like fully enlightened. Maybe if you're really lucky, you might find someone who has gone the distance, but just people who are on that path who have been there are ones you should be learning from. The books are helpful, but it gets us trapped in the intellect, right, Alex? And we need to
Yeah.
experience these things.
Yeah.
So getting insight from someone who's been experiencing them and doing that is super helpful. So I think that's really cool that like how you were kind of serendipitously drawn to Amir with just
Yeah.
one simple conversation that felt random, but to me, nothing's random.
Well, do you know the funny thing? Like, it doesn't end there because then after that moment, I learned from him, till this day. Now it's been like 2 years we see each other, maybe like virtually every few months. Like we don't see each other as much.
Hmm.
But when sorry, when I started my journey, I it also started when I bought my first Thoth tarot deck.
Oh, cool.
And at first, like this is a very intimidating deck because it was created by Aleister Crowley to kind of bring forth the new levels of consciousness humanity has access to. So
Mm,
therefore, he put more of the occult symbolism into it. Like basically, the rider weight was like for now it would be like it's for children. It's
hmm.
like people kissing. Oh, it's okay. It means relationship. It's a relationship. It's easy to access but these it's like the esoteric. So you go like, well, the lover's card is not no longer about two people loving each other. It's about you connecting with your kundalini energy.
Hmm.
So I was like, I bought another deck to start to learn because this one was the images were so profound, and I connected with the images at first because they're so profound and so beautiful. but I had to find ways. So I was looking online and I found this blog. It's called Elite Tarot blog, and he goes in depth. Like he has understanding of magic, Kabbalah, numerology, but he's also a PhD in theology, so he knows everything about the cards, and he's I think a student of Thelema as well.
Mm.
So he has these blogs he makes of each card. It's like I don't know, 15 pages depending which blog, but on one card, and it goes through all the levels, why the colors, why these
Mm-hmm.
connections with these Hebrew letters specifically. And so go back to like I'm not seeing Amir much anymore, but then I have the insight. So I have been like kind of independent. I
Mm-hmm.
entered my solar phase like in 2023, which brings like an independence where you become your own guru in a way. You connect with your
Mm-hmm.
soul directly. So that was my vibe, since 2 years.
Yeah.
But then last winter, I'm reading his blogs again because I have been learning from him through his blogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I go below and I see that there's a link to like private sessions with him. And it's like almost January. So I'm like, why not have like a year reading with him? And so I meet him. And long story short, I've been seeing him maybe like 12 times so far.
Wow.
And he is really like a master. Like he is a very very old soul, but that is integrated, which makes it so that you don't come into this world forgetting your past lives. He has
Mm-hmm.
this kind of remembrance, like all the way to the Anunnakis, like his
Wow.
lineages,
Wow.
and he knows everything about magic, about yogic traditions, like philosophy. And it really like what he's shown me, which is the most important thing I think, is the remembering of who you really are, but like pushing it in. Like you are
Mm-hmm.
not your personality, you are not your
Mm-hmm.
intellect, and always reinforcing that like session by session by giving you more kind of data for that message to be reinforced.
Yeah.
And it really had like a very profound impact on me because since I've had these sessions, I've had like four huge breakthroughs
Wow.
that are included with why I'm making my art,
Mm.
why I've been drawn to the feminine mysteries, the feminine rites. Ever since I started with Amir, I've had experiencing my birth, like remembering
Wow.
exactly the feelings I had when I was born and the trauma that was still within me and crying like from
Mm.
that trauma being released all the way to like recently having my own rebirth in one of the temples I painted that I saw in a vision. Like
Wow.
some very, very profound things that opened up because it's like instead of associating with my lower personality, which is my rising sign, uh, starting to create a dialogue with the bigger forces that are always connecting to me and having kind of a reversal that you would call the hangman in tarot. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of seeing your personality looking up at the soul, seeing the soul looking down at the personality. And that was such a big
Wow.
shift.
Yeah.
And of course, like it's been since that first big session, it's been maybe 6 months. And every session kind of switches this process a bit more so that when you come out of the ceremony, often you have this fresh energy, you understand things, but then your personality kicks back in, and then it slowly comes back. But
Mm-hmm.
at every session, this coming back becomes weakened. So
Yeah.
I feel like more and more like this energy is access and has influenced me like a whole lot because now I get what's I was telling you at the beginning of the podcast, this kind of Rahu Ketu force that's pulling me.
Mm.
Well, my Rahu, it's in my house of the occult and the esoteric, and very connected with the age of Aquarius, which in this
Wow.
new age. And now I understand what my art is about, which changes
Wow.
everything, right? Because
Yeah.
you, you're driven, but you're kind of blind. I'm doing things intuitively. It works out. I'm learning from it. It's a mirror, but I still don't get like what's that's strong pull about. And now I
Yeah.
know.
Well, I think that's a great segue into kind of talking about your art practice because I love the kind of approach that you have with these projects that are more installation based, experiential based, kind of multi-sensory, but then also like, evoke like kind of the esoteric symbolism, but also a personal kind of interest in explorations. So like you kind of have a great balance of making it very personal, but also having that universal quality as well, like balancing those two. And so I'm curious, like as an artist, were you making work before you were on this journey, or did the art kind of begin as you were kind of in this spiritual path? Like as a
Mm.
kid, did you see art as a part of your life, or is that something that came later?
Yeah, no, as a kid, I was very creative, that's for sure, 100%, but never like I never associated with arts, I have no
Mm-hmm.
background in arts, no one in my family. I mean, I would, yeah.
All right, y'all, we're back. We had a little technical difficulties. I'm blaming it on Mercury. We're in Mercury retrograde right now, which interrupts technology sometimes. So, but we were just talking about your art and like your journey of like how you got into art because you said you were always creative growing up, but like never really identified as like an artist. Like so you were in the middle of
Mhm.
kind of talking about how you began that kind of getting into the creative phase in art making. So I was wondering if you can
Yeah.
try pick up where you were
Well,
where you were talking.
yeah, like it kind of connects to that magnetic pull I described at the beginning. Like if I look back in my memories when my art teacher was pulled me aside because I was so invested in my art projects in secondary five in Canada. It's like when you're, I guess, like 16, 17. I had off my English class because I had already passed the exams. So I would go in my free time to continue my art projects when the door was open and my teacher would let me. And at some point he took me aside. He's like, "Hey Alex, have you ever considered like seriously becoming an artist?" Like, and I was like, at that age, I was just like, no, and I just dismissed it. But it
Mm,
left an imprint in my mind because I still remember.
wow.
So the clues of the universe were still leading me somewhere, and I'm sure that this was a seed that later on, when I finished CEGEP in Quebec, we have CEGEP,
Hmm.
which is like, when you're 19, 20, before university. Then I finished CEGEP, and then my mom was like, okay, like Alex, there's 1 week left to apply to university in in September. You have to choose something. What do you want to do? And I'm like,
Mm,
well, I don't know. Like, I love psychology. I love this. I love that. She's like, just, I don't care what you do, but you have to choose. You have 1 week.
wow.
And then I'm guessing that seed that was planted opened up because I was, I was into extreme sports. So I was like borrowing my friend's camera. I love filming and doing photos. And I had an elective in CGIP in photography, which, I had the best grades and I was kind of,
Mm,
I knew I was very passionate about. That's why I had good grades. So I was
yeah.
like, what about a photo program? I looked it up, and the same week I put my portfolio from the photos I'd taken in CJEP, put it together, drive to Montreal, an hour from where I was staying, up to the university program, and I got in. And then
Wow.
only to realize that first week of school that I was thinking it was a photography like commercial, like you learn studio lighting, and but it was an art school, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
because I did it so fast, I didn't really look. I was just kind of like
Yeah.
very impulsive, like doing things quickly. And I'm like, okay, I'm in an art school now, so I learned like how to use 4x5 cameras,
Cool.
the medium format, all the things, but I also felt limited by the medium, and I was so far from who I am. I didn't know who I was. So I was like, my teachers thought I was so weird because I was just creating so intuitively, and I was making these kind of weird projects, but I didn't really know why. Like, I could not
Mm,
explain why I was doing what I was doing. And then I started I took electives the last year in painting, and that was kind of opening. I didn't know how to paint before that, so my teacher was like, oh, you got the award for the best improvement in the
Cool.
course. You're not the best, but you improved the best.
Yeah, yeah.
Because from like never mixing paint to like having full series of paintings at the end of the year.
That's amazing.
But all this to say that when I graduated, I kind of stopped photography. Like I didn't really take it anymore, and I got a studio, started to paint, addressing my limits. So I decided to enter a painting academy to learn the technique.
Hmm.
Did that for 2 years, and then I kind of entered this world. But all this to say, like I never thought of myself as an artist, but more as a, a creator, like someone that creates stuff. Like I was before being in art school, I was more entrepreneur. Like I was doing all these things, creating value and selling things, and making stuff happen from nothing. That's kind
Yeah.
of what I like better. And then when I integrated my spiritual practice, well, that became the focus of my life.
Hmm.
So all my art was a way to understand philosophical concepts in a more integrated way. So by
Yeah.
for me thinking about something, say, programming it, like sketching it, and then creating it, it was kind of giving it a life within myself. And this expanded more and more as I integrated different, I guess, different senses so that I would create these immersive spaces. And almost like the opening day of my solo exhibitions become kind of the initiation for me. Like it's
Wow.
really like a magical process. And I got insights into that process in my first oil painting series where I would paint something with all these symbolisms and they would manifest in my life. Like whatever I
Wow.
was programming in my painting would happen. So I was like,
Wow.
well, I'm tapping into something that's more than just, commercial art and the commercial art business. And
Hmm.
but then as my knowledge grew of, the occult, but also of the art markets and everything, I began to, you know, develop my own techniques for programming my art, for understanding myself through art and teaching it as well.
Hmm.
And this, I told you 2023 was my solar phase, and it began a very more independent phase where I was forced to let go of my personality ambitions and
Hmm.
focus on what my soul wants me to do with my art. And that's when I began having visions, literal visions
Wow.
that didn't feel like they were personal, like channeling this temple of Osirian in Egypt without knowing it's the temple that exists, posting it
Wow.
on my Instagram and having someone tell me, look into that because that's like the temple, like literally.
Wow. That's incredible.
So, and then going to online, finding the map of it, sketching it out with sacred geometry to understand what the Egyptians were encoding within the
Hmm.
proportions of the temple,
Oh,
what it
yeah.
was about. And then like maybe a month ago, having this big experience where I was initiated in that temple in the astral realm
Wow.
and having this rebirth with a new birth time. I have a new birth chart, astrological birth chart
Hmm.
that was given to me, and like a whole big thing opened up, so there's a progression that's very consistent in my life
Yeah.
that I could not have. Actually, I could have if I was like fully self-aware when I was the first time my art teacher told me that, and I would connect the dots. I could. There was an arrow that was pointing in a specific direction, and looking back, it's quite obvious now.
Hmm. Yeah, it's amazing how we're led in ways that we can't recognize in those moments. But obviously, looking back, we can start to see the breadcrumbs that we were following to
Yeah.
bring us to the present moment and where we are. And I love that, like, it started with that teacher planting a seed. I'm an art teacher, and I feel like that is my role, is to plant seeds of awakening and consciousness in my students in the most subtle ways sometimes, not really always direct, but like just trying to start to open their perspective a little bit wider than their individual self and see this interconnection that's a part of all reality and be able to experience it and notice it, follow it. To me, that's like part of my life purpose, is just to be like almost like Johnny Appleseed, just planting seeds everywhere I go. I don't know where they're going to sprout, but like I'm
Do
just
you
have a
teach
bag of
young
seeds.
people? Do you teach young people or
Hmm.
older people?
I do now. I teach young people now. I've taught college age kids, high school age kids,
Um,
like teenagers, and now I'm teaching like middle school age kids. So that's like 11-year-olds to 13-year-olds or 14-year-olds.
that's
Um,
amazing.
it's awesome. It's an energy you have to prepare for.
Yeah.
But I love it. And because for me, like I had a really close relationship with my art teachers growing up, and they were
Hmm.
the ones who really instilled within me a sense of confidence that like this is something that is natural for me to do, you know. But I was always into sports. I was into being social and distracted from reality a little bit, you know. I had my own dark night of the soul and awakening journey that I've talked about on the podcast before. I won't get into it now, but it's just funny, you know, looking back how we're being guided, we're being led, whether we
Hmm.
recognize it or not. And there are moments in our life where we have an opportunity, like you said, like at that opportunity, you saw the arrow was pointing, like, you know, had you have known it, you could have taken it there, but you had to go a few more steps before you were ready to take that. And so I think it gives you opportunities, and sometimes you take them, but sometimes you don't. And so they'll circle back around at the right time. Say, like, now, are you ready to take this opportunity to grow in this direction or realize this part of yourself or embody your real deep soul purpose? Okay, no?
Hmm.
All right. Maybe a couple more years later, we'll come back around. Here's another opportunity, you know? So that's
Yeah.
my personal experience. It feels like we're
And
spiraling through it.
that's why I do a Vedic astrology and I work with artists because you can actually see the arrow in astrology. You can see the points, you can see the cycles you're in and how they will manifest and how they're all bringing you in a specific way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool to be able to process this as an artist. And also my own process, like, is very lunar, like understanding my art. Why did I put this color, not this color? Why did I put this symbol and this? Why did I use this type of support and not
Mm-hmm.
another one? All of these little questions are all programs that are unconscious most of
Mm-hmm.
the time.
Yeah.
But with astrology, you can be in the nakshatras, which is kind of the lunar part of Vedic astrology. You
Yep.
can start understanding the mythology of your life and how it's playing out in your psyche
Yeah.
and how you're influenced by some the planetary force to take actions in the world and why you're taking those actions for and the more awareness you have from it the best the impact of your soul that your soul can have in the manifested world in the
Yeah.
physical universe.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I can, you know, I can sense that you're trying to cultivate is like, and as myself as well, is like, how do we maximize our potential to be a vessel of service
Exactly.
on this
Yeah,
plane? Service to
that's it.
everything, every single component of what's surrounding us. Because the ego, the personality structures, the small self and the stories that surround who we think we
Hmm.
are big barriers to being able to become empty for that energy to flow through us, through our
Hmm.
actions, through our state of being. And I think these yogas and these meditative practices, all of these things are to prepare the vessel to receive more
Yeah,
of that energy and to transmit it,
but
you know, in
if I
some
can
way.
if I can say something that for me it was very valuable is like it's all about intention. And
Mm-hmm.
for anyone listening to this that wants to have a higher connection and a more purposeful life, it's something you have to cultivate. And like even as simple as writing a memo on your phone every morning when you wake up to like have an intention to connect with your soul and receive the guidance so that your personality becomes the subdued to your soul and not
Mm-hmm.
vice versa. And
Exactly.
this comes with a lot of challenges because we are in this materialistic culture and world, so we're used to be glorified by our personality's achievements and ambitions, and that's what's motivating most of us. We want the trophy, we want the acknowledgments, we want the best galleries to open up to us. So when the soul has a different agenda, it's very challenging because it's a part of your ego that has to rip. but know that it's a slow process and you're slowly removing parts as you're ready to let them go.
Mm-hmm.
And your soul has a way bigger agenda than you think.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about sales. It's not about, it's about, again, like you were mentioning, channeling light that is needed, almost like there is a cosmic plan, but there's no more like channels to bring forth this new energy in the world because we're all very closed down on our ego and identifying with our intellect, our thoughts. And the thoughts, if you look in tarot, look, I have a card here. This card is the Eight of Swords, interference. That's what it means. It's like there is so much thoughts that the signal cannot come through. You're creating your own electromagnetic field from your mind so that the higher, electromagnetic
Mm-hmm.
signals cannot come in your antenna. So it's intentional every day. You're cultivating this new connection. And over time, you get glimpses of this access,
Mm-hmm.
this kind of solar force that's full of wisdom that is will be taking over. And for me, that's how these recent revelations that I feel is very important for me to talk about because it is a like it is not about me, like it feels like it's something bigger. So but the reason that I've been doing all of this art is to there is a humanity is going through a collective grieving and has been. And the biggest grieving starts the second you're born. And you're born into like a cold hospital with harsh lights. And there is no more, I mean, it's coming back, right? Like natural birth and having these kind of integrative, warm water bath where your soul comes in. But there is still so much pain of grieving as a baby, grieving the disconnection from the cosmic mother, this
Mm-hmm.
very comfortable ocean of consciousness that we're in, and coming here with like parents that are doing the best they can with what they have, but often they don't have much tools to integrate the spirit in the material. So we
Mm-hmm.
come here and all of a sudden it's a very harsh disconnection from our true selves,
Yeah.
and it comes to like with a lot of pain that we carry from birth and that keeps our ego minds in the fight or flight fear
Yep.
mode because the fear of death comes at the second we're born
Exactly. Wow.
because it's our parents' emotions are transmitting this to us, like protecting us, like
The
all this
anxiety
kind
of
of
it. Mm-hmm.
anxiety.
Yeah.
And this carries for most of humanity's lives. It carries on for the whole life in this fight or flight, doing things out of fear, not out of love. And so this, my whole new download of this project is a place to remember all the symbolism that I have come to me and the artworks that are going to be working in harmony together to create a multi-sensorial experience is for this purpose to help you remember that you are safe to be your soul basically, and a place to grieve this pain of being disconnected from the most comfortable place you've ever been, like
Mm-hmm.
the place where only peace exists. That's where you are as a soul.
Mm-hmm.
You're in this kind of, imagine like water that's enveloping you but it's the same temperature as your skin, and you're just fully wrapped into this, and you just hear like a subtle heartbeat of
Mm-hmm.
like a comforting presence. That's where you are before
Yeah.
birth in this
Mm-hmm.
ocean. And then you're disconnected from that and chasing that all your life.
Yeah.
But it's, and the big insight that I had is like remembering how continents were formed. It was initially just ocean, and then there's magma that comes out, emerges, which is the divine will, creates continents. And now we're living on the material world, but we forgot about the ocean that's
Mm.
surrounding the islands. So we need to reintegrate these divine feminine rights, divine feminine wisdom, so that we can unite the land and the ocean, the consciousness and the kind of material unconsciousness. They
Yeah.
have to work together. So that's kind of like something that's really on my heart these days to share as much as I can. So yeah.
I'm right there with you. I mean, for me, like this body of work that I'm still experimenting and kind of developing. I always go through these experimental phases with my work in between bodies of work. And I'm calling it the Heaven on Earth series. It's all about bridging those things together, like bringing that consciousness down into the material plane and finding an integrated experience of that. And like doing that, obviously, in my personal life, within my own spirituality and practice, but also within my art practice, within the way I'm a father of two young children, I
Mhm.
teach young children. I'm surrounded by kids all day who are lost and trying to figure out what's going on and who they are, and just trying to be like a stable post of like awareness and love and compassion for that, to kind of be that bridge. But it's an ongoing everyday practice of remembering. So I want to circle back to the advice that you're giving the audience that I try to take every day is the intention. Like every
Mhm.
day when you wake up, before I even put my feet on the ground, I have an intention for that day. And it's all based on what I've kind of basically just talked about. But like saying it out loud, saying it within your heart, saying it deep within yourself, and embodying it before you put your feet on the ground and begin to move into the day has been such an incredible way to initiate me back into that intention over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Um, because it's easy to get lost. It's easy to get lost out here, like especially as an artist, like in a material world where like it's all about success and sales and notoriety and all this. And I'm just trying to shed all that. And so I've kind of turned a page in my own life, like how do I get this work to people as easy as possible while not giving it 100% away because I'm a father. I have material
Yeah.
needs I have to take care of. Like I got to put food on the table, got to pay for our mortgage and all the silly things that humans have made up, these systems we've created to live
Mhm.
this life, which is we can go down that road maybe another time. But like, so there's a practicality to it that I have to embody, but to what extent, like how do I find a way to be sustainable, but to get what I need to get from it, but not anymore. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
enough so that the work can just go out and live with people and be beacons of positive energy, divine intention, like little
Mhm.
seeds, planted all over. But it's hard, because your parents have an expectation on who you should be and what you should be doing, family, friends, society. And so you have to learn how to let that go and find the soul's purpose,
But
like what you spoke to.
there's also another point is like we associate as artists like our creation are these paintings, these sculptures, whatever we create, these dance performances. But something that is kind of the essence of Rosenbra, my project, is that creation is everything. Creative, like loving is creation, that's the basis of it. And then this love gets transformed and transmuted into everything you do, from the way you dress in the morning, the decisions you take. It's just turning like the focus between being a passive movement, like a seaweed that's just kind of bouncing against the different tides, to become a creator where like you're creating tides with intention aligned with your soul.
Mm-hmm.
So the artwork becomes irrelevant in the end.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Irrelevant because it kind of blends in with all the decisions you take in your life. And
Yeah.
if all of them are aligned, the flow will come so strong within you. Like I've been integrating in lately, like there's a kind of to create a wave in the material world, you need to create a plane. Like in a plane, the simplest plane you can create is a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 3 points and they create a plane. So this is how it works. You have your mind, body, and spirit have to be in full alignment for this kind of energy to start to ripple out, and you then become a magician. You can manifest whatever you want and spirit will bring you whatever you want, but your belief system, your emotions, and your actions have to match. That's the
Yes.
thing.
Oh, such
and
good
once
advice.
and once this is done, like your creations, like your artworks will naturally, like you don't even have to think about it. You're going to put the right color at the right time, and you're going to meet the right person and have the right spark of creative, words that are going to have the perfect effect to ripple out in their lives, that is going to look back at you 2 years later. And
Yep.
you know but it's all about intention. like these three parts, but also removing the fear aspect is the first,
Yes,
step
that's the
sometimes.
first step. Oh yeah.
But it's the first step, but also when you're creative, fear goes away. That's the thing.
Hmm.
It's like opposites. Being receptive to your environment, I'm a victim of the circumstances, and becoming a creative force in your system. Oh, I don't like this. What are you going to do about it? If you don't not willing to do anything about it, stop paying attention to it. If you're willing to do something about it, do something about it. you know?
Right? Exactly. It makes me think of that Yoda quote. It's like, try or try not, or no, do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
right?
And magic is the same thing. Like
Yeah.
most of humanity is doing gray magic, and it's the worst type of magic. It's worse than black magic. It means like
Because there's no
whatever
intention
force,
or consciousness
yeah,
there.
whatever forces are out there, they could be evil, they could be good, but you have no will, so you just kind of, if you're being programmed by Netflix to like live this certain lifestyle, perverted qualities like of lust and this and that. Well, if you're not actively choosing your ethics, your morals, you're under the spell of your environment, and whatever kind of darkness exists within the unconscious minds of the creators of these Netflix shows and this and that, and you become just a you're doing black magic, maybe sometimes white magic, but you don't
Hmm.
have choice.
Exactly.
You're not exerting your human qualities of
Exactly.
creation.
Because most people are, I mean, I hate to generalize, but it's, when you pay attention to society and the way things are, like a lot of people are just divorced from this whole component of their psychology, of their like sense of self. You know what I mean? They are like, I love how you use the word spell, like they are under the spell of the material paradigm. And so they're at the whims of like you said, like the unconscious intentions of who's creating the content that they consume without
Hmm.
even knowing it. That sense of agency is like one of the first steps that you have to take ownership over, taking ownership over your soul, taking ownership over your consciousness, and being very intentional about how you use it, what you allow in, what you don't, what you
Hmm.
ignore, what you don't ignore, and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
But that process is scary for people. So I like how you talk about like fear, like overcoming that fear of the fear. Really, I think the majority of fear comes from this place of not having control and wanting
Yeah.
control. And
Hmm.
that's really the role of the ego, is to figure out a way to control everything, right? Like that's its
Yeah.
mechanism of how it sustains its power through control. But the opposite of that is surrender, is
Hmm.
surrendering to the divine forces that are guiding you, and then slowly becoming confident in your agency over how you engage with those forces, which takes
Hmm.
time, takes a lot of pain and suffering. And in most cases, you have to go through those challenges to have that rebirth. Like you spoke about, like being reborn, like re-experiencing your birth without the trauma that came with our initial human birth, to be reborn again and be a part and be fully awake and conscious through that process is kind
And
of the initiation, right? Is the initiation into higher consciousness that is spoken about and spoken about through all spiritual traditions if you look close enough.
hmm
So I think
and
that's
something
something we seek.
about that is that I've noticed, because it was my own experience, is that because you're talking about trauma and being reborn, without the trauma, or like integrating the trauma. What I've noticed, and that's kind of an interesting clue as to how these healings work, just because sometimes we can live in this fantasy, like after with, there's a lot of spiritual bypass, and you think you just get kind of healed. And the thing you have to understand, like at first you get the spiritual insights, it slowly like dissolves into your mind, and it becomes a belief. So the belief can change. That's the first step. Then it becomes you react emotionally different to the same thing that would trigger you before that. But the last part is the actual emotion stored in your physical body.
Mm-hmm.
And if you study like alchemy, like the earth element, which is the body, is the slowest one. Like a plant doesn't grow overnight, like it takes time. The same thing to take away the stored trauma in the cells of your body, it takes time. So
Mm-hmm.
it's important, like the mind goes quick. You can change belief just in a second. The emotion is also very quickly. But when it comes to the body, it takes long time and a reinforcement. And that's again kind of the energy I'm working with is the cosmic mother. It's Nut, it's Hathor, it's all these Virgin Mary, these compassionate, and this same energy that perhaps you didn't have when you were born by your mother,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't have access to this nurturing, but it's all pervading. It's
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. This cosmic mother exists within the ether, the grid, and she wants you to take care for her of your body, like to
Mm-hmm.
take nurture yourself, take care of yourself. It begins with your thoughts, obviously, because that's the quickest to change. Notice the self-harming thoughts you get, but also take care of your physical body. Put
Mm-hmm.
essential oils in your bath, like let yourself be nurtured, and
Yeah.
have this motherly install this motherly software in your mind so that you can, and I say install, but it's actually connecting with it, that it is there. And what I've noticed that's an interesting nuance too is like you have some more earthly archetypes, like the motherly archetype that wants to protect the child against physical threats.
Mm-hmm.
The cosmic mother, to it's important to understand how she works. She doesn't really care about physical threats. She cares that your soul evolves. She's like taking care of your soul to make sure it grows and it
Mm-hmm.
survives the lifetime that you came here to evolve. So in this regard, it might let you go through the hardships and the things. Doesn't mean it's not nurturing and giving you what you need. It's just a different perspective of seeing that these things are there to help your soul grow, but it's
Exactly.
always there. There's always this benefic energy all around you at all times, even through the worst pain and
Yeah.
suffering.
I mean, that's such an important message. And for many, it's so hard to remember that, especially when you're in the midst of like deep pain
Yeah.
and suffering. But I would, in my experience, would 100% agree with that. And I also love how you're talking about with the body. Like, I forget the book, like the body keeps the score someone
Oh
wrote.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just love
I
that phrase.
forgot
I
what the
never
name.
read the book, but I love that phrase, like the body, because it does. Like the memory is in the cells in terms of this physical life where you've had like physical trauma or emotional trauma, it gets stored. And
Mm-hmm.
so I began, and my personal spiritual journey began a lot with like a lot of asana, a lot of like, that kind of
Yeah.
yogic movement to release the trauma in my body. And I still do it all the time to do that and trying to like be more thoughtful and intentional about what I consume in terms of like the kind of food, what I drink, psychedelics that I've done, like when, where, intention, you know what I mean? Not overdoing it, not
Mm-hmm.
looking at it as an answer, but really more of a question and an opportunity to heal or uncover where healing needs to happen more. At least that's been my experience with it. But like trying to, I don't like to use the word purify because there's so many connotations to that can be misconstrued, but really to like to clean the vessel so that it can function at its highest capacity for your soul's mission, because this is just a vehicle for that
100%. Yeah.
energy. And so the more efficiently that vehicle can function, the more quality, the higher potency of that energy can come through, which means the more impact you can have in your soul's mission. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's all connected, the body, mind, spirit, right? And so there are levels to it. But I love how you put it like in terms of like what can change faster. Mind can change really fast, emotions can change fast, but the body takes time and it takes care and nurturing, and you have to have patience with it and consistency in terms of how you treat it. So I just resonate with that a ton
Yeah.
in my own life.
Something that my spiritual teacher has really reinforced in me, that became alive within me, is that your body is a product of earth. You have to take care of it as you take care of nature of Earth. When you die, it gets recycled by Earth and becomes something else. On the other hand, your mind is not from this Earth. We don't have the same mind, the same DNA as animals in this mental thing. We have our mind is cosmic,
Hmm.
and that's something also that's interesting and important to acknowledge. We are not just made of earthly material. We have, anyways, this is another rabbit hole, but we have this ancient cosmic DNA that was. I don't believe we come from monkeys. I believe we have some of the genes of monkeys mixed with other genes, and so we are dual. That's
Hmm.
why we can think and rationalize that animals cannot do, because
Hmm.
we have another mind that
Yes.
is cosmic, and that's why we can connect with different dimensions and are not just kind of under the influence of the electromagnetic field of earth like most animals and insects. And
Yep.
we have access to different planes. So our body is the first thing, for the soul to be able to connect with this physical plane to learn its lesson
Yep.
and also transform the collective dream. You have to have a good vessel. And your
Yes.
vessel is very connected with your personality. That's interesting to connect as well. If
Hmm.
you have a lot of disease in your body, perhaps there's a lot of, darkness to your personality or like vices that
Hmm.
you're following. There's a connection and you can study it. And you
Yeah.
take care of your body, your personality changes, and you become more connected to earth, not just like I am my body, but I am all of it. I am the
Yeah.
nature and the plants. I am all the other humans I encounter.
Yep.
And therefore, you kind of release slowly the hold the ego has on your life.
Yeah. I mean, that is like what we talked about a little earlier, that reversal of the role of the
Yeah.
soul and ego. It makes you think of like, the Bhagavad Gita and like the whole story of Krishna and Arjuna. And like that's really like kind of the metaphor for like shifting that relationship, in terms of who's driving the chariot, so to
Yeah.
speak. And I think that is for some, it comes easier than others based on their past lives, based on karma, based on their experiences, based on the way they treat themselves in this life. There's so many variables at it. And so you can get overwhelmed in like trying to like think about what those variables are. But I think it can be just very simple, like here, now, in this moment, like being conscious of like what are the choices that are going to bring you to the place deep down that you want to be. Is it going to be picking up this type of drink or that type of drink? Is it going to be eating this plate of food or this plate of food? Is it going to be going on a walk in nature, or is it going to be going in your car sitting in traffic on the freeway, like trying to
Even the
get
type of the type of music you choose to listen to.
the art
I
you
feel like,
consume, right?
yeah, like if you listen to, like I'm very sensitive to sound and smell,
Mm,
but sound, it like it's an emotion. You're listening to an emotion. Which emotion are you feeding your mind with? Is it
yeah.
like aggressive? Is it degrading? Or is it like uplifting, stimulating, and expansive? That's a,
Exactly.
a subtle thing, but that for me on my journey, I've noticed the cycles of my life, when I was in the most dark places, what type of music, what type of movies that I consume.
Hmm.
And you can use medicine, alchemy. You reverse what you're naturally inclined to do and alchemize this energy quicker, because it will
Yeah.
end up by doing what it has to do, but you can change it quicker.
Yeah, you can accelerate that process of like of dissolving those attachments or dissolving those tendencies,
Mhm.
They're going to run their course ultimately, but yeah, like you're saying, like you can accelerate how long it
Exactly.
takes for them to run their course.
Mhm.
I feel like we can just keep going. I want to make sure before we wrap up that we talk about, Rose Umbra and like this project of you like cultivating community and cultivating a place for people to learn more about themselves through their art or through other varying like healing modalities or esoteric knowledge. And I was wondering if you could kind of talk to the audience about what that is, how that became to be, and sort of
Mhm.
how your intention with Rose Umbra, and I don't know,
Yeah.
so people can get connected to you through that.
Well, when I was talking about the plane that has to have 3 points,
Mm-hmm.
there's different dimensions to it. Your persona, your person is one plane, and for me, Rosenberg is another point. What I mean by that is like it feels like I'm my I have my personal soul that can only do that much, right? Like I have X amount of energy of calories to burn per day, but creating an egregore, something that's bigger than you, that's 100% selfless, for me, that was my natural way of letting go, starting to let go of my personality, and to have a project that is very solely for the people, like.
Mm-hmm.
And it started when I entered my solar phase again. For me, this is a very karmic project because I during the COVID I was in Turkey. I left for Turkey for 3 months, traveling solo on a motorcycle because I had a deep connection with the music, with the culture there, and I had never been. And when I went there, I had so much deja vu, so much flashbacks of like
Wow.
past lives, and I'm like, whoa, why am I recognizing this? Different keys that I had had from different initiations before, and then I was seeing them activated in this trip.
Wow.
And the big moment was actually it's the background of my website. It's exactly that scene, and you can see like the moon in the horizon. I was like just cruising and just in bliss in it, like total freedom. And this is allows your heart to be fully open. And in that moment, I took this picture, knowing that it was a seed for something to come. I didn't know what, because
Mm.
Rosenberg was only created 2 years later, or maybe
Wow.
3 years later. But on one side, you had the moon, full moon, and on the other side, you had the setting sun, 180 degrees.
Yep.
And this became kind of the aura of Rosenbro, which is integrating the sun and the moon,
Mm-hmm.
making the conscious unconscious and the unconscious conscious, merging, bridging them together, which gave rise to what, now I'm doing my own podcast, the Blue Hour podcast with Rosumbra. And this season, I accentuate, actually, I got this revelation of going deeper with the program of the Blue Hour, which is the in between the moon
Mm-hmm.
and the sun. It's like the in between times of the
Yeah.
day where you can access the unconscious realms. That's the concept. But I've decided to further the concept even deeper. And this season that starts in September, my guest, I have two parts: the solar part and the lunar part.
Mm.
The solar is kind of like what we're doing here. It's kind of talking about the career, about different topics that we're interested in. And the lunar is me more consciously asking the guest like questions that will trigger their unconscious mind. So more subjective questions, so we can
Mm.
understand that part. So all this to say that the whole aura of Rose Umbra is really merging those realms and giving people tools to, because as an artist you have all the data, like everything you've created is like a condensed version of what is in your mind at that
Mm.
moment. So
Mm-hmm.
we can go back in time, study your old artworks, your old decisions, seeing what your unconscious mind was trying to tell you that you maybe never got to explore. If you're repeating the same things, well, it's because your unconscious mind still has something that is unprocessed for you to absorb and digest. So I love helping artists because they have all the data to do that dream interpretation as well. And I do one-on-one sessions in that regard, like with astrology and tarot, going deeper in the why you're creating work and
Mm-hmm.
helping you find a deeper purpose behind your creative actions.
Mm.
And then the retreats become like all the tools I've developed with my own art to study it, to even like without the artwork, how can I trigger in the daytime, in the middle of the day, how can I access my unconscious mind? Because you access it every night when you sleep, but how can I do that during the daytime?
Yeah.
I have developed some tools that I share in my retreats where we actively do that. So we try to merge both realms. And I always work with astrology. So if a planet is very potent, is very exalted in the sky right now during the retreat, we're going to probably be working on that element in the retreat. So this brings another flavor that's real. It's not just
Yeah.
there's something potent that we
It's
can
immediate.
pull. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's how I build the retreats. And then this winter, I awoke from a dream and I was like, told that I have to create this grant that is just kind of I call it the Rosenberg gift, because it's really a gift. It's like you apply, and it's for any artist that have a spiritual dimension or that would like to have. So you're invited to apply it starting in September, where you answer a few questions about your art practice, where you get your inspiration from. And I've built a jury of 5 people, including myself, and we'll be evaluating the files, and you get access to well, Nika in Spain that you had on your podcast. She
Hmm.
has a retreat and residency center. You can go on a residency for the first place winner for a month, second place 2 weeks, and the third place 1 week. And you get money, get different gifts, and mentorship
Wow.
as well. So this was something that was really on my heart, and it's really like for the people, for the community, to start thinking of their art in a spiritual dimension if they never have, and if you have, to highlight it. Like,
Hmm.
I'm going to be doing a lot of taking some of the best applications and just posting them on my Instagram and giving them, and they have the first winner will also be on my podcast, so he gets to shine for his soul work, not just for his personality.
Yeah. That's amazing. I feel so aligned with you, Alex. Like everything that you're doing is it's so inspiring to me. Like I feel like, starting this podcast like was kind of like similar, like it's like a way to like give voice to other people who are interested in these things and I can talk about them forever. So I was like, naturally, like, maybe I should just start just reaching
Mm.
out to people and talking to them because I love something I am passionate about speaking to people about. But like, I love how you're taking it a step further and really offering all these services. So everybody out there, you got to check the show notes to get all the links that I'll post to Rosumbra, to Alex's work, to this grant. So we're going to release. So this, if you're listening to this now, it's released right around the launch of this grant. So
Yeah.
please apply. Do not, turn a blind eye to this for my artists out there. Like this is an amazing opportunity to grow, to meet other people. And I just love what
Yeah.
you're offering. I just think it's
And
so inspiring and beautiful.
more than the gifts and more than the prizes, I think it's like your soul, you know, putting your intention into something that will have a ripple effect, creating, because now spirituality and art is still very niche. It's still, but before, if you think a few hundred years ago, that was it. You would do
Mm-hmm.
religious art. You would have to be fully aligned with spirit to be able to have money from your art. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
the reversal of that.
Yeah,
And art is this very primitive part of us that is an instinct that we all share. And I want to bring that slowly. So by applying and participating, you're actually just setting the intention and giving light and life to something that you believe in. If you do believe that that's
yeah.
the path that we need to be going as society, to create with more love and less greed.
Mm,
So it's just a little action. So more than the prize, it's something. It's setting your intention in a way.
exactly. Man.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Well, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast and for connecting. I think there's a lot more to come. I would definitely, hopefully, some point in the near future, we can meet in the 3D realm, not just
Yes.
through the digital platform of the internet, but it's been an amazing conversation. I can't wait to listen back to it. And everybody out there, click the show notes, follow Alex on Instagram. I'll have all of that in there. So thank you so much again. And we're going to talk soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, like, I really appreciate you having me on, and I really like you resonated with my work. I really resonate with yours, and I do think we probably actually have very similar time of, like, a date of birth, because I feel like we. Are you born in March, by the way? Like,
No, June.
okay, so
So yeah, I'm a
you're
Gemini, but
can
I'm a Virgo rising. I'd love to maybe do an
okay.
astrology session with you
Yeah, let's
at
do
some
that.
point because I've never actually done I've done it myself through, other things, but like just having someone else who, because
Yeah.
I have a more of a surface level understanding of astrology compared to people like yourself. So it'd be cool. So I might
Yeah,
reach out to you to
I'd
do
be
that.
glad to offer you a Vedic astrology reading to
Yeah.
see to see your chart. But yeah, thank you so much for the work you're doing and for the. I really feel like you're having an impact, a direct impact. The point is, I found you. Like there
Mhm.
is some ripple effects that your work is having, and I really appreciate your work in the background too that I'm seeing right now. It's really beautiful and
Thank you.
inspiring as well. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. I really
Yeah, for
appreciate it.
sure. Well, we'll talk real soon. Okay. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of Concerning the Spiritual and Art. If you like what we're doing here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stay in touch and in tune with all the amazing offerings that we're going to be bringing to this channel. Thanks again for all your support. Super grateful, and excited to bring more content your way. Peace, y'all.